I'm an English professor, so naturally, I love books and words and language in general. At the same time, I'm a longtime film buff, and over the years, I've become increasingly interested in the history of cinema, and especially of silent film. I believe that the best of the early silent filmmakers did indeed have a voice, and often a remarkable and a distinctive one. That was certainly true of the pioneering and prolific Wharton brothers, Ted and Leo. Together, the Whartons had a hand in some 600 to 700 films, including chapters or episodes of the serials for which they were so rightly famous in their day. The preponderance of the Whartons' films were shot at the studio that the brothers established in Renwick Park in Ithaca, New York, and that they operated successfully between 1913 and 1919, a period during which the Wharton studio became one of the most profitable and productive regional independent studios in the United States. Although the Whartons created a handful of feature films on timely and controversial topics, the form in which they excelled was the serial motion picture, or serial for short. Typically action-packed, two-reelers, serials ran for 10, 15, or sometimes even 20 weekly installments, and they often ended with a cliffhanger and also a promise to be continued next week. That ensured that audiences would have to return to the movie theater for the next 2 or 3 or 4 months to see how the story progressed and how it ultimately ended. The Whartons' first serial was the enormously successful The Exploits of Elaine, which spawned 2 sequels, The New Exploits of Elaine and The Romance of Elaine, in which the heroine Elaine Dodge tracks down and exposes her father's killer. The serial set numerous precedents. It was the first film ever to employ a disguised and faceless villain, the Clutching Hand, the first to feature a forensic scientist as a detective, and the first to use the search for a deadly weapon, in this case a supercharged torpedo coveted by foreign spies, as a major plot point. Exploits of Elaine was also reputed to be the first film to earn $1 million at the box office. Other innovative Wharton serials soon followed. In 1916, The Mysteries of Myra, which was about a young woman who's threatened by the members of a mysterious cult called the Black Lodge, who want to steal her fortune. Myra was the first film to incorporate actual magical practices such as levitation, transformation, and astral projection. Another of the brothers' popular serials was Beatrice Fairfax, based on an actual pioneering newspaper advice columnist who was the Dear Abby of her day. Upon receipt of letters from her readers asking for her intervention, Beatrice investigated and exposed thieves, extortionists, kidnappers, and other criminals, and then wrote up the stories for her newspaper. While those adventures may not seem so remarkable today, more than a century ago they were truly radical. Most of the Wharton serials followed a similar formula and starred attractive, glamorous, independent, assertive modern women who were the opposite of the proper, subservient Victorian woman of the late 19th century whose life revolved around family and home. What made the Wharton heroines even more compelling is that they were played by some of the best-known and most admired actresses of the day, like Pearl White and Irene Castle, both of whom set fashion trends nationwide and earned international acclaim. The introduction of sound film in the 1920s brought the Whartons' careers to an unfortunate and untimely end, but their legacy is indelible. They embraced advanced cinematic technology, incorporated stunning special effects and thrilling stunts, and used progressive storylines, all of which influenced later filmmakers and eventually television producers. In fact, the Wharton serials were the precursors of today's popular TV installment dramas and crime procedurals, and of film blockbusters like the Indiana Jones and Star Wars franchises. The story of the Whartons is therefore at once a singular portrait of the burgeoning film industry at a critical and transformative point in American social, political, and cultural history, and a snapshot of a magical moment in movie making when the Wharton brothers transformed their adopted town of Ithaca into Hollywood on Cayuga.